I'm 40 now, and for the first time in years, I look in the mirror and recognize the woman staring back at me. Not as someone's wife. Not as a shadow shrinking behind a loud man's presence. But me, just me. 2 months ago, I did what I never thought I'd have the strength to do. I filed for divorce. 20 years. That's how long I spent tied to a man who only knew how to measure love through control. Every decision I made had to be weighed against his mood. Every breath I took had to be quiet enough not to spark his rage. I wasn't allowed to exist fully. He made sure of it. But now, that chapter is closed, the ink dry on those divorce papers, and the silence that fills my home is finally my own. And yet sometimes silence can be too much. Every weekend, I wait for my son to visit. It's become the one bright point on the horizon of my week. Daniel is in his final year of university, studying psychology, a decision he made on his own, though I've always suspected it had something to do with growing up in a home where emotional chaos was our version of normal. Unlike his father, Daniel listens. He sees. He notices. He's gentle in ways his father never knew how to be. And I've caught him looking at me lately just for a second too long. Not with judgment or discomfort. Just noticing. The way I've changed. The way I carry myself now that I'm free. Sometimes, I catch myself wondering if he sees me not just as his mother, but as a woman rediscovering her life. It's a dangerous thought, I know, but it flickers in the back of my mind like a candle not yet ready to burn out. That Friday, it was raining. The sky outside looked like bruised metal, and I had just finished folding a fresh batch of laundry when I heard the front door click open. My heart always does this thing when I know it's him. This tiny flutter, like I'm 17 again, and someone I admire has just walked into the room. He stepped inside, head lowered, his backpack slung over one shoulder. His hair was damp with rain, sticking to his forehead in lazy curls. But it wasn't the weather that weighed on him. I could see it instantly, something had cracked. Daniel? I stepped into the hallway, drying my hands on a towel. He looked up, and his eyes, normally bright, always a little mischievous, were hollow. She left me, he said simply. My breath caught. What? Who? Sasha. She said she needs space. Said I'm too intense. Too emotional. I reached for him instinctively, and to my surprise, he let me pull him into a hug. She doesn't deserve you, I murmured into his shoulder. You're too good for someone who can't appreciate what you offer. We stood like that for a long moment. His body trembled slightly, and I realized he was holding back tears. I didn't see it coming, he admitted quietly. I thought we were solid. I thought, he trailed off, voice cracking. Stay the week, I said immediately, brushing his wet hair back from his face. I'll make your favorite soup. You don't have to go back until you're ready. His smile was small, grateful. Thanks, Mom. That evening, I made lentil soup, just like I used to when he was little. He sat at the kitchen table, hunched over his phone in silence, the smell of rosemary and thyme filling the room. I never thought she'd be the one to walk away, he said after a while. I opened up to her, told her things I haven't even told my therapist. That takes courage, I said, placing a bowl in front of him. Most people spend their lives hiding. He looked up at me, then really looked. His eyes swept over my face, pausing at my cheekbone, the way my hair was pinned back, the necklace I never used to wear. You've changed, he said quietly. I smiled. So have you? No, I mean, he hesitated. You look different. Happier. Softer. I turned away under his gaze, my heart knocking a little too loudly. Freedom does that to a woman. He didn't respond, but I could feel his eyes on me as I moved around the kitchen. Later, as we sat on the couch watching an old movie, I felt his head gently drop onto my shoulder. It startled me, but I didn't pull away. The storm outside rolled in, lightning briefly illuminating the living room. The flicker caught the tension in the air, thin as glass, and just as breakable. He sighed, deep and low. I don't want to talk about her anymore, he said softly. Can we just sit here? Of course, I whispered. And we did. But in the quiet, in the low hum of rain and memory, something began to stir, Something unnamed, unspoken. Something that neither of us was ready to admit. Not yet. I must have drifted off. The soft hum of the television was still playing, some old black and white film flickering like a memory on the screen, when I felt the sudden shift beside me. Daniel moved. He sat up abruptly, like a thought had landed with such force that it demanded action. I blinked, still half lost in the quiet rhythm of the rain, the warmth of his shoulder that had been against mine now gone. He stood, running a hand through his hair, pacing once like he did when he was thinking hard. Then he turned to me. "Let's go to Italy." I stared at him. "What?" "I'm serious." His eyes were bright now, alight with something I hadn't seen in days, weeks maybe. "We both need a reset. You're finally free. I'm done with exams, and I've got the money saved. Why not?" I sat up straighter. "Italy?" "Yes." He grinned now, excited. "Venice. Florence. The Amalfi Coast. I don't care. You always said you wanted to go when I was little, remember? You used to tell me stories about lemon groves and cobblestone streets." "I remember," I said quietly, touched. "But Daniel, you don't have to." "I want to." He knelt in front of me, taking my hands. His palms were warm, a comforting weight over mine. "You spent years locked in this house, behind that man's anger. Always giving, never receiving. Let me do this for you. Let me see you smile in the sunlight." The words caught in my chest. I looked down at our hands. My fingers felt small inside his now, where once they had cradled his when he was a baby. Now he held mine with a steady strength I hadn't realized he possessed. "You'd really spend your savings on me?" I asked, my voice thick with emotion. "It's not spending on you," he said, eyes locked with mine. "It's spending time with you. I want us to live for once." I looked at him, at the man my son had become, the gentleness in his voice, the fire in his eyes, and I saw something in him that both frightened and soothed me. He was still my child, but there was something else now, a tenderness, a depth that made me feel seen in ways I hadn't dared to imagine. And for the first time in so long, the weight in my chest lifted just a little. "All right," I whispered. "Let's go to Italy." His smile lit up the room. The next few days were a whirlwind. Between online bookings and last-minute passport checks, we barely had time to breathe. I found myself laughing more than I had in months. Daniel was like a force of nature, plowing through plans with the enthusiasm of someone desperate to outrun their own heartbreak, and maybe mine, too. On the night before our flight, I stood in front of the bathroom mirror, holding a sundress against my body. I hadn't worn something like this in years. It was soft, cotton, with thin straps and a light floral print. Modest, but still feminine. I try to see myself as Daniel saw me. Not just as a mother, but as a woman rediscovering herself. When I stepped out into the hallway, Daniel was already waiting with his bag. He paused when he saw me. "You look," he trailed off. "What?" His gaze softened. "Happy. You look happy." I smiled, lowering my eyes, feeling strangely shy. "You do too," I said. We arrived in Rome the next morning. The city was a blur of golden sunlight and shuttered windows, scooters darting between ancient buildings, and the smell of espresso and blooming jasmine in the air. We stayed in a small guest house tucked on a quiet street near Trastevere. It had a tiny balcony overlooking a courtyard where children played soccer and old men argued loudly over card games. It was perfect. On the third night, we sat in a small wine bar under a tangle of fairy lights and ivy. A local guitarist played soft melodies in the background. The wine was dry and warm on my tongue, and my cheeks glowed from the sun and laughter. Daniel leaned closer across the table. This is what life should feel like." I nodded. "It feels like a dream." He tilted his head. "You know, I don't think I ever really understood you until now." "Understood me?" "You were always quiet," he said. "Always watching. Always carrying things. But here you feel different. Lighter. Like you're finally allowed to breathe." The look in his eyes made my heart stutter. There was something reverent in it. Something raw. And for a moment, I didn't feel like his mother. I just felt like a woman. A long silence stretched between us, filled only by the soft hum of music and clinking glasses around us. He reached across the table and touched my hand, lightly. Just his fingertips. But the heat of it burned through me like a question unspoken. "I'm really glad you came with me," he said softly. "So am I replied, barely above a whisper. That night, when we walked back to the guest house, our hands brushed once. Twice. And then, I let mine stay. We didn't go home. The night air in Rome had that kind of warmth that only Italy seems to master, balmy, perfumed with citrus and stone, and soft enough to make you forget time. We walked slowly, my heels clicking gently on the cobblestones, his hand brushing mine as if it belonged there, until Daniel suddenly stopped in his tracks. "Wait here," he said, his voice laced with sudden excitement. "I have an idea." "Daniel," I began, but he was already striding ahead, then turning back to grin at me. "Trust me. This will be the most romantic night of your life." My laugh caught in my throat. Romantic? But before I could ask what he meant, he slid an arm gently around my waist and pulled me toward him. My breath caught, my body reacting before my mind could catch up. "I mean it," he said, softer this time. "You need magic. And I know where to find it." That's when I saw it, a scooter rental shop, tucked between two shuttered galleries. A faded red sign hung above the narrow door, lights strung carelessly around the frame. A teenage boy behind the counter looked up and waved lazily as Daniel stepped inside with the confidence of someone who already knew this was going to be perfect. "You're serious?" I asked as he handed over his ID. "Completely," he said, grinning like a boy again. You've never seen Rome properly until you've seen it on two wheels. A few moments later, he wheeled out a Vespa, creamy white with worn handles, just old enough to feel like a relic of every European love story ever told. I stared at it. "You know how to ride that?" He smirked. 4 years of motorbikes back home, remember?" "Barely," I muttered, laughing nervously. He mounted the seat and patted the spot behind him. "Come on. I promise I won't let you fall." With a flutter in my chest that I hadn't felt in decades, I stepped forward and climbed on behind him, my dress bunching slightly at the knees. I slid my arms around his waist, and the moment I did, something inside me shifted. It was instinctive, familiar, and entirely foreign. His back was warm through his linen shirt. I could smell the faint mix of soap and the wine we had shared earlier. As he started the engine, I tightened my hold around him without even thinking. He laughed under his breath. "Don't be scared." "I'm not," I whispered into his shoulder. "Not with you." We rode through Rome like we were dreaming. The streets glowed with golden lamplight, ancient buildings watching silently as we passed. He didn't go fast, just enough to let the wind kiss our skin, to let the scent of night-blooming jasmine wrap around us. Laughter spilled from side alleys, music drifted from open windows, and somewhere in the distance, a bell tower struck 10. At a red light, he glanced back at me, his face lit by the flicker of a neon sign. "You okay?" I nodded, too breathless to speak. Then, just before the light turned green, he said, "Switch with me." I blinked. "What?" "You drive. Sit in front. Just for a bit." "I haven't, Daniel, I don't know how." He shook his head, smiling. "We're not racing. We're just floating. Come on. Let me show you." There was something in his voice. Gentle, playful, trusting. I slid off the scooter, and he helped me reposition, settling me onto the front seat. My hands trembled slightly as I wrapped my fingers around the handlebars. He climbed back behind me, closer than I expected, and his arms came around to steady mine. "Just like this," he murmured near my ear, his breath brushing the side of my neck. "Daniel," my voice faltered. "I've got you," he whispered. "Always." He guided my hands. His chest was warm against my back, steadying me with the easy rhythm of his breathing. For a moment, we just sat there, the scooter idling beneath us, the world hushed around us. I could feel his hands resting lightly over mine, his cheek brushing my temple. And for the first time in years, I didn't feel alone. I didn't feel old, or tired, or broken. I felt wanted. I felt alive. We rode again, slower this time. My heart beat in rhythm with the soft engine beneath us, and Daniel's hands never left mine. Not to correct, not to control, but just to be there. He let me lead. Down narrow alleys bathed in shadows, across tiny bridges lit by candlelight from lovers' tables, and along the Tiber, where the water shimmered like it was dancing just for us. Eventually, we stopped on a quiet hill overlooking the city. The scooter rumbled to silence, and for a long moment, we just sat there, his arms still wrapped around me, my head resting lightly against his. Rome stretched out below us in gold and silver. Timeless. Beautiful. I don't want this to end, I whispered. It doesn't have to, he replied, his voice low, filled with something unspoken. I turned slightly to look at him. His eyes found mine, and the silence between us said everything words couldn't. We sat on the scooter for a long while, still as statues, breathing in the velvet night. I could feel his gaze even before I turned to meet it. Quiet, steady, heavy with something more than just affection. The city glimmered beneath us like a spilled box of gold, but I couldn't take my eyes off him. Do you miss him? Daniel asked softly. His voice was low, almost hesitant. I didn't look away.
No.
The word came easily, freely, and I meant it. The silence after it was thick, the kind that holds its breath and waits. Then I asked, Are you thinking about her? Daniel didn't blink. No, he said, then added, I'm thinking about you. Something inside me shifted, like gravity had tilted, pulling us toward a place I never thought we'd go. And then, before I could question it, before either of us could retreat, he kissed me. His lips were soft but certain, as if he'd thought about this moment longer than I dared imagine. My heart thundered in my chest, yet I didn't pull away. I couldn't. The kiss wasn't rushed. It was full of something that had been waiting quietly between us, slowly growing roots. When we broke apart, I didn't speak. Neither did he. We just stared at each other, breathless. I shouldn't have, he started, but I shook my head. I know. He searched my eyes, his hand still resting lightly on my arm. I don't regret it, he whispered. Neither did I. We drove again, the silence between us, now charged with meaning. The kind of silence you only experience once something irreversible has happened. Daniel pulled the scooter up to a small restaurant perched on a hillside, overlooking the dark stretch of water. From our table, you could see the lights dancing on the sea's surface, tiny reflections trembling with every wave. A waiter appeared, cheerful and unaware, offering a wine list. Daniel ordered without looking something red and expensive. We didn't speak as the glasses were poured. When we finally did, it wasn't small talk. What are we doing? I asked, my voice barely audible above the gentle murmur of music in the background. He swirled the wine in his glass. Feeling. That's dangerous. He met my gaze. So is pretending not to. The words settled in the space between us like truth. The wine warmed my body, but the way Daniel looked at me, so sure, so unguarded, set a different kind of fire under my skin. Do you remember, he said suddenly, when I was 10 and I came into your room because of a thunderstorm? I nodded, smiling faintly. You crawled into my bed, wrapped yourself around my arm like a vine. You whispered stories to calm me down, he said. I didn't sleep. I just listened. Your voice was the only thing that made the storm go away. I swallowed hard. You are the only person who ever made me feel safe, he added. Even back then.
I didn't know what to say, so he kept going.
I've studied the psychology of attachment, trauma, healing, but none of that explains what I feel when I'm around you. He looked away briefly, then back. You're more than my mother. You're the first person who ever saw me. And I see you too. All of you. My breath hitched. This wasn't confusion. This wasn't a boy latching onto his caretaker. This was a man, flawed, fractured, and feeling something terrifying and real. The honesty in his words undid me. "I feel like we're standing on a ledge," I said quietly. "One step further, and everything we've ever known will be behind us." Daniel leaned forward, his voice calm. "Maybe we're not falling. Maybe we're just flying for the first time." The next hour passed in slow motion. We talked about everything, the kind of everything you save for midnight conversations with someone who knows your soul. Our wounds, our fears, his loneliness at school, my years of feeling invisible. The first time he realized he didn't see me the way a son typically sees his mother.
And how it scared him.
"How long have you felt this way?" I asked. "Since before I had words for it," he admitted. "But I never let myself hope until now." We finished the bottle. The sea stretched endless before us, and the moonlight made it shimmer like a secret. I reached across the table and touched his hand, letting my fingers rest there. He turned it over, lacing his with mine. There was no more pretending now. Only truth. Only us. Who we were to each other no longer fit inside the usual definitions. And maybe that was the scariest part, how natural it still felt. That night, we left the restaurant hand in hand, not speaking, because nothing needed to be said. The city slept beneath us, but we were wide awake. The streets of Rome were nearly empty now, washed in soft pools of light from antique lanterns clinging to crumbling stone walls. Our footsteps echoed gently against the cobblestones, weaving in and out of each other like our thoughts. We didn't speak much, but the silence between us wasn't awkward, it was safe.
Sacred.
I felt his hand brush mine again, then slowly slip back into it. I didn't pull away. I didn't want to. The night air was warm, thick with the scent of lavender from some distant garden and the fading perfume of passing strangers. I had never felt more alive. And yet, beneath that aliveness, a quiet, growing ache was blooming inside me. An ache that begged to be spoken. We paused at a small bridge overlooking a sleepy canal. A single boat drifted slowly underneath, its soft wake carving ripples into the glassy surface. That's when I said it. "Daniel." He turned to me, his face illuminated by the golden glow of the lantern beside us. "I need to tell you something," I said, my voice barely more than a breath. He tilted his head slightly. "Anything." I looked down at the water, then back at him, my heart thundering in my chest. "I've never felt this good with anyone before," I admitted. "Not with your father. Not even in my youth. I don't think I ever really knew what this feeling could be until now. Until you." The words were out. Irretrievable. And terrifying. But freeing. He didn't hesitate. He pulled me into his arms, holding me tight against him. Not urgently. Not with confusion. Just closeness. Real and full. I felt his hand at the back of my neck, warm and grounding. "Say it again," he whispered into my hair. "I feel more alive with you than I ever have," I repeated, my voice steady now. "And that scares me." He exhaled, as if he'd been holding his breath. Then he pulled back just enough to look at me. "What if we stayed here?" he asked suddenly. I blinked. "What?"
Here.
"In Rome. Or anywhere in Italy. No one knows us here. There's no history to drag us down, no stairs, no judgment. Daniel." "I mean it." His voice was steady, not like someone throwing out a fantasy, but like someone daring to dream aloud for the first time. "We could start over. You've always wanted to travel, to live somewhere warm and full of life. I've seen the way you look at this city. You shine here." "I wouldn't even know where to begin," I whispered. "With me," he said simply. "Begin with me." His fingers tightened slightly around mine. "We could find a small apartment. Something with a view. I could finish my research remotely. You could teach again or write that book you used to talk about. We could live." My lips parted, but the words caught. No one had ever asked me to imagine a future before. Not one where I was the center of it. Where I was more than just someone's mother or someone's wife or someone's shadow. Just a woman. Just me. With him. What would we tell people? I finally asked. We wouldn't have to tell anyone, he said. It's not about what people think. It's about what we choose to build. Here, we could just be. The idea settled over me like sunlight through lace, gentle, warm, but slightly unreal.
Could we?
Could we really disappear into a city that hummed with so much history and yet offered us a future with no expectations? Are you serious? I asked softly. He nodded. I've never been more serious about anything. The canal below us glimmered, reflecting our shapes in blurred motion. I've spent my whole life being what others needed me to be, I said. But with you, I just feel like myself. He touched my face then, gently cupping my cheek. That's all I want, he said. For you to feel free, loved, seen. And in that moment, I let myself believe it. The city, the stars, the wine still lingering on our breath, all of it felt like a world conspiring to let us begin again. I want that too, I whispered. He smiled, and his lips brushed against mine again, slowly this time. Not a rush of feeling, but a deliberate seal of something new, something sacred. And when we walked away from the bridge, hand in hand, the idea of staying didn't feel so impossible anymore. It felt like coming home.